Good evening, board members, Mr. Gonzalez, and district staff. The time is 6:03 p.m. on this 17th day of January 2003. I call this Business Committee meeting of the United Independent School District Trustees to order. Well, it's just myself.
Good evening.
Good evening, everybody. Let the record show that this meeting has duly been called and that the notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance to the Texas Open Act Meetings Act. First agenda item is the Pledge of Allegiance. Could you all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. Pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state. You want to be seated. Mr. Gonzalez, any public comments?
Mr. Rodriguez, at this time, there are no public comments, no.
Okay, we jump to item number 3. A is budget 2003-2004 updates.
Good evening, Mr. Rodriguez, and members of the audience, Mr. Gonzalez, and our attorneys. Just to bring you a budget update, I know in December we brought you a calendar on how we're going to get to our budget, hopefully by August 31st. Administration is holding budget planning meetings with the C&I Department, Human Resources, and the Planning Department. Our discussions are centering around projected enrollment for the new school year, staffing projections, and compliance with bilingual regulations. That seems to be one of the things we really need to be addressing. Before the holiday break, meetings were held with the 4 campus principals who are projected to gain students from other schools based on the proposed boundary changes shared with the board in December. Remember, there's 4 schools. It's Bonnie Garcia to Killam, and then it was Salinas, like 45 students from Salinas to Reese. There was about 117 students from Perez to Arndt, and then the fourth school was United South Middle, would lose about, I think, about 180 some students to Antonio Gonzalez. And so we're in the process of making sure we know which parents will be notified, and then hopefully we can hold the parent meetings, hopefully that last week in January or the first week in February, so that we can advise them of the boundary changes. Mr. Garza did meet with his transportation staff, and I think they're able to accommodate these changes to provide the right transportation services to these kids that are going to be affected. So that's in the works right now. The other big item that happened during not during the holidays, but the past couple of weeks, and actually Tuesday, January 10th, the legislative session started. There have been more than 800, and actually it's more like 1,300 bills that have been filed. About 300 of those bills probably are impacting public education. As administration, we've been told to keep an eye on the bills that affect us. So like Sam and I will be keeping an eye on those that affect finance. We are sharing with our senator some comments that she reached out to our offices and asked us if we had any comments on some issues that she's looking at. So we did send her some things that we were concerned about. Property tax relief, we do support it as long as they don't hold back money from us.
Of course.
So those kind of things. So we'll be continuing to do those things, reaching out to our legislators on those bills that we found favorable to United ISD. So that's where we are right now. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, ma'am.
For the record, sir, we're also meeting with all ISD on Thursday. Same concerns when it comes to legislative stuff. So our plan is to meet again, and hopefully during our midwinter conference, the last week of January, we're trying to make an appointment with our state reps. They can assist as well.
Thank you. And B, review of the legal policies in TASB updates 120.
Good evening, Mr. Rodriguez, Mr. Gonzalez, attorneys, members of the audience. Rebecca Morales, Assistant Superintendent for Administration and Policies. I would like to present you an informational item. We have the review of legal policies in TASB Update 120. We have a total of 26 All revised policy, no new policy at this time. Do you have any questions?
No, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
C, a presentation of elementary and secondary schools emergency relief. ESER 3 returns to the in-person instructional and community services and use of funds for plans revisions.
So again, Rebecca Morales, Assistant Superintendent. As far as ESSER is concerned, by statute, every 6 months, we do have to review, Mr. Rodriguez, our use of funds as well as our safety plan. So it's time for our 6-month review. As far as our safety plan is concerned, we have met with Mr. Garza and his safety team, and there are no changes at this time to our safety plan.
Did we address also those issues that we had with, I think, we had maybe 3 or 2 issues that we had at one point in time with the safety?
Well,
plan?
this plan in particular is just related to safety for COVID, return to excellence,
okay.
not necessarily safety overall. So that's what we do have to address in this plan.
Okay.
But I believe, Mike?
Yes, sir. Just to
That
answer
is
your
being
question,
addressed.
yes, sir, we did submit the plan of action, and that's already filed and at the state level. So any new ones that come up, we'll bring back to the board to let them know.
Thank you.
And the second part of the presentation is the actual money that got sent to United ISD. Here's still a breakdown of how we're seeing how the money's being spent and how we're tracking so that we make sure that we spend at least 20% of it on learning loss. And so you'll see there a couple of items that we have already either been spending on or are planning to spend on. Take, for instance, we had spent money on remote conferencing. We continue to support those kids that end up staying home, and we have teachers that either teach them firsthand or they provide lessons to them. We also have part-time campus support at those schools that needed just a little bit more help with their administrative and instructional needs. We have some money for staff development, the reading academies. This summer, we plan to fund summer school. And then the schools continue to have like tutorials after school. Sometimes they have it on Saturday. We've been giving them funds for that. One of the big ticket items on that particular section, we started ordering more of those IFPs for those rooms that didn't have IFPs. Judy Garcia and her team have gone out there to identify the campuses and rooms that needed IFPs. So that $7.6 million, that's starting to be spent, and I think we've already done some at the high schools. Family engagement, Ms. Morales is in charge of those funds, and she's been working on her resource center. Highly instructional materials, 11.1 million. We are supporting some software programs that are hoping that it's helping teachers help those students that need to be recovered, whether reading or math, so that those monies are being spent on those types of things. Technology infrastructure, that's money that Mr. Bettis has invested in securing our network and cybersecurity. And then safety is another big ticket item. We did start the UVC germicidal project in November, and I think Mr. Rangel had reported to management that pretty much we finished the Mines Road area. They already did the schools in the Mines Road area, and they're coming this way. So hopefully by the end of April, we've gotten all the campuses done.
Yes.
And we still have some COVID teams that are helping us at the nurses area. And also, pretty soon you'll see an RFP come on our water bottle stations. So we're still working on some safety things that I think they're good things for United ISD. We also have the licensed counselors that we're still funding from these funds. So that's still a breakdown of the 127.5 million. Thank you.
Thank you. Agenda item number 4, A, approval of monthly disbursements.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Rodriguez. The Division of Finance presented you with the disbursements for the month of December. If you have any questions right now, we can see if we can answer those questions. Thank you.
We're good. We go to item B, approval of property of tax refunds for the month of December 2022.
Good evening, Mr. Rodriguez, Mr. Gonzalez, members of the audience. We bring to you the tax refunds for the month of December. As you can see, there's 5 refunds for a total of $18,163.48. There is no loss of revenue to the district. All these accounts are paid in full.
Okay, thank you. Approval of low attendance waivers?
Mr. Rodriguez, we're bringing to you for the board to consider approving the low attendance waiver for Lamar Bruni Vergara Middle School for the date of December 12th. It was a day that the school actually had some issues, I think, with security. And so they were 10 percentage points below their prior year attendance rate of 90.50. They were at 60.39%. So if this gets approved, we do have the documentation to submit to TA once the board approves, and then hopefully they grant this waiver.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Item D, approval of independent audit report
Yes.
for the year ended August 31st, 2022.
Mr. Rodriguez, we have with us today Francisco Pesina from Cascos and Associates. He's the lead auditor who conducted our annual financial audit, which is required by Texas Education Agency, and he's going to do a quick presentation for us.
Good
You
evening.
do have the little booklet there. It's probably going to be easier if you follow along with the page numbers that he calls out. Yes, sir. Because it'd be hard to scroll back and forth, but I'll try to keep up with this.
Good afternoon, Mr. Rodriguez. My name is Francisco Pesina. I come on behalf of Cascos and Associates to do the presentation of the audit report for United ISD as of the year end, August 31st, 2022. If you can please turn to page 24 on that booklet that you have in front of you. That's going to be the balance sheet for the governmental funds. If you would please go or direct your attention to the general fund, which is the first column. And if you go all the way down, you're going to see a line item called unassigned fund balance. If you see there's $89.9 million sitting in there. That's money that the district can use for basically anything. It's not committed, it's not restricted, it can be used for one-time emergencies or any other thing the district might want to use it for. So we use that number to calculate what we call the days of operations, which is basically the days that the district will be able to continue running if there was a loss of revenue, like if there was a stoppage of revenues, meaning no revenues are coming in or out. And to get that number, you first need to look at the expenditures, which are on page 27. And once again, if you look at the first column, page 27 is the income statement, just to clear that out. And if you look at the first column and you go to towards the middle end of the page, you're going to see that total expenditures equal $390 million. So if you divide that number by a year, 365 days, you get $1 million, which are basically the expenditures per day. So if you get your unassigned fund balance, which is sitting on page 24, the 8.9 million, and divided by the expenditures per day, which is the 1 million, you get 84 days. We usually recommend the districts to have anywhere between 60 to 90 days, 2 to 3 months of days of operations. So in this case, the district is almost reaching those 90 days, which it's a pretty good financial indicator of how healthy the financials are. Also want to emphasize on page 27, you can see that the general fund balance went from 91 million, that's going to be at the bottom of the page, 91.7 million to 150 million. So the total change was 23.7 million. That's how much the fund balance went up in just this single year. So that's another good indicator of that the district was able to, to keep their expenses down. Okay, if you can please go now to page 36. This is an income statement for the general fund. If you look at the last column, the variance between the final budget and actual amounts, you can see that for all the expenditures, all the functions from 11 all the way to 99, there are no negative balances, meaning that actual expenditures stayed under budget. That's another good indicator of how the district is able to keep track of their expenditures for the year. Another item that I want to talk about is GASB statement number 87. That statement was or is required to be implemented for fiscal year 2022. And basically what is happening is that operating leases, which are copier leases, computer leases, as an example, now they have to be recorded as assets and liabilities on the books. Before the implementation of this statement, it was not required, but due to it being implemented this year, it has to be required. And if you turn back to page 22, the statement of net position, and if you look at the assets, it's the item 1580. You see it there? Oh, 1550, my bad. Right to use lease assets, those will be the operating leases.
It's a 13,000, right?
No, it's above that. Excuse me, the number above that, the $2.2 million.
Yes, the 1550, my bad, I know I said 1580, 1550. So you'll be able to see there the implementation of it. If you go back to last year's report, there will be, that line item is not there because it wasn't required to be there. And lastly, to conclude my presentation, we don't have the opinions yet because we haven't wrapped up everything on our side. But as soon as we do, we'll submit it to the district, and I'll be back next week on Wednesday to do the presentation of the whole report as well. But that basically concludes my presentation. Do you have any questions, sir?
No, sir. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
Cosina, thank you, sir.
Item E, adoption, resolution of the early notification of employee separation from employee incentives to full-time district employees for the 2022-2023 school year.
Mr. Rodriguez, Mr. Gonzalez, and members of the audience, administration is recommending that the Board of Trustees consider an early incentive for as full-time UIT employees wishing to resign or retire from the employment at the end of their contract term or work calendar. This will help us understand how we do our staffing, so we'll know what numbers we're actually looking for, also to help with our management of monies as well.
Has it changed the amount that's been offered?
I don't believe so. I know our attorneys did look at it, and this is a yearly thing that they've done in the past. It's the same.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Item F, approval of awarding bids, proposals, and qualifications.
Good evening, Mr. Rodriguez, Mr. Gonzalez, and staff. We have one renewal for your consideration, and this is the medical consultant that's used by our Health Services Department.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay,
It's a
that's
good-
quick. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Item G, approval of the CSP as method of procurement for science lab renovations at United South Middle.
Yes, so as per Government Code 2269.056, before we enter into any construction contract, we have to get the approval from the board as to which method we're going to utilize. So we want to utilize CSP, competitive seal proposals, for the science lab renovations at United South Middle School. This is part of the 2013 bond proceeds.
So this will be the same thing going for item H.
It'll
also
be the same thing, but this will be for various building renovations at Reese
Oh, okay,
Elementary.
yes.
Mhm.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Item I, approval of request for board members and board members trustees discretionary funds for various campuses.
Sorry, sir. Mr. Rodriguez, Mr. Gonzalez, members of the audience, at this time, we do not have any official documents for requests, but we may have some for next week, for next Wednesday. So I know that there was
For the
some.
board meeting.
Yes, sir. So anything that comes in, we'll present at next week's meeting.
Next week, yeah, please.
Thank you.
Item J, first reading of the TASB updates, 120, local policies.
Yes, Mr. Rodriguez, so part of TASB Update 120, we do have some local policies. So this is first reading. We do have 3 policies in particular that we're looking at revising. There's no significant changes to policy, but there's some changes to the language. The first being CKC Local. This is for a safety program and risk management emergency plan. And the only change here, which we have discussed again with Mr. Garza, in response to safety is to number 3 is to include language in our emergency operations plan for nearby train derailment, even though it's not really applicable to us. The second one is FNG Local, which has to do with student rights and responsibilities, student and parent complaints and grievances. And in this one in particular, there is an addition of language to our innovation plan, as well as some language to 504 and special ed. And then the last one is FO Local, which is student discipline. And here is really just the removal of some language and then some movement in some of the moved text as well. So we've already presented this to the management team. We've discussed it at management. We presented it to our district leadership at this past leadership meeting. And so we have from now until our next board meeting where we do the final to make any edits to the proposed changes from TASB. Any questions, sir?
No, ma'am, thank you.
Thank you.
Item K, discussion of possible action to approve the retirement of United Snippet School District K-9 EDA and to authorize the transfer ownership of the K-9 EDA to Penny Longoria.
Yes, sir, on behalf of Chief Alonso Salazar, we're going to ask for the recommendation to be made next Wednesday for your approval, sir. And again, it is our K-9 Edna, who is under right now, under Officer Penny Longoria. So we'll ask for that as we're going to retire this K-9. Okay.
Why is the retirement? Is the dog already absolute? She did their services?
It's the dogs, it's the K-9's time, sir. I mean, in simple terms, it's time. It's not an illness, it's just time.
Thank you. Item L, discussion of possible action regarding approval of the master interlocal agreement between Region 1, ESC, and United ISD.
Yes, Mr. Rodriguez, and Mr. Gonzalez, and members of the audience. This agreement is one that's been longstanding between United ISD and Region 1. They just changed some of the naming of the agreement, so instead of a local assessment fee, it's now being more specific on the types of services that Region 1 is going to be providing. So we recommend that this be taken for approval via consent agenda.
Okay, thank you. Item M, first and final reading of board policy, BE local, and board meeting.
Yes, sir. Once again, on items M, N, O, and P, all 4 of those items are related to the idea that we've discussed with the board regarding changing from committees like tonight to a board workshop for various reasons, including efficiency and some of the redundant items being presented to one committee and then the other. And in addition to that, you can have one trustee or all 7 of you all sit in on those workshops. So these are really just more procedural changes to some of these policies. For example, making it clear that it's no longer going to be called a committee, but it's going to be called a workshop. And we also need to make the change to your all's board operating procedures to change some of that phrasing around as well. So that those 4 items are all related to that contemplated change. But again, it's a board decision.
And how would it take effect to see who would be giving the meetings?
Or
take charge of the meetings?
Technically, right now, the board president is an ex officio member of the committee meetings, which means there's 3 members on each committee. So with the board workshop, all 7 of you all could sit as a board, and we'd post it as in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act. So technically, the board president would be the chair of those meetings, and if he's not in attendance, it would go through the order of the officers. So the vice president and then the secretary
So on.
parliamentary. Yes, sir.
Okay. So this covers from
Covers the rest of the items.
items. So, then we go with motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.